WIZARD101 is so unique, they said. You'll love it, they said. And you know what? Despite its flaws, of which there are some blatantly obvious ones, this game was significantly more fun than I'd ever given it credit for. Hey, my name is STIX and welcome back to another episode of Is It Worth Playing? Before we go ahead and jump in, I genuinely tried. I told Chad I would go ahead here and I would try to do this entire video with a British accent, but I failed. I gave it my best shot though, so there's that. You can't fault me there. Now, this is a video series where we analyze every facet of an MMORPG in an attempt to come up with an objective and opinion as possible as to whether the title that we're currently looking at is or is not worth playing in 2022. Today, we are taking a look at WIZARD101. I was warned that while this game is free to play, there's a paywall present that severely inhibits your ability to play the game beyond the introduction. But I mean, like, you guys should know me by now, right? When do I listen to what people tell me? Never. Quick shout out to our patrons over on Patreon. This allows you to directly support us if you're interested. Every patron will have their name appear at the beginning of every single YouTube video, and you'll be immortalized in the MMO genre forever. Now, WIZARD101 is an MMO developed by KingsIsle Entertainment, released back in 2008. Players take on the role of a student at Hogwarts, you know what? Wrong game. At Ravenwood, a school dedicated to teaching kids how to hone their innate abilities as wizards. Upon starting the game, players are asked a selection of questions that help discern your interests and your affinity with different elements. I had chat choose my answers based off of what kind of person that they thought I was, and we ended up with an ice element. Now, I am going to go out on a limb here and assume the reason for that is because I'm pretty cool, right? No? After selecting your magical affinity, you can create your character. Options were fairly limited. You can customize a basic selection of facial features, then you're immediately thrown into a battle with Attila the Hun, while being walked through the basics of combat, which I guess should be what we address first. WIZARD101 employs an interesting type of instant turn-based combat. As a wizard, you build a deck of cards. These cards consist of monsters that you can place onto the field in face-up and face-down attack or defense position. Oh wait, nope, there we go, wrong game again. You place down cards which summon monsters for that turn and deal a set amount of damage to enemies. Every card, every monster has their own element and as such is both weak against and strong against specific elements. If you ever plan on playing this competitively, it'd be wise to learn both your deck's individual strengths and weaknesses. Or you can just do what I did and have a group of max level people come along, join you, and one-shot everything for you, featuring cards literally right out of myth and legend. As noted, combat is instanced. This means that you can't just walk out into the open world and engage enemies other players are actively engaging like you would in traditional MMOs. The combat is unique though, and as a fan of JRPGs, was actually a massive blast of nostalgia. Graphically, I mean, I can't deny that this game certainly leans towards looking incredibly dated by today's standards. KingsIsle is an American developer, however, and Western MMOs never really excel graphically. Even the best Western MMOs, like the Elder Scrolls Online, fail to live up to their Eastern competition. Nevertheless, the game has this unique charm to it, I'd say. Kind of like you're playing a book out of your childhood. The headmaster reminds me of Merlin. We have talking animals. We have really cartoony villains. I understand the target demographic wasn't necessarily teenagers or young adults or players who prefer competitive content like hardcore raids or PvP. What the game does have a focus on though is its narrative. You're introduced to a plethora of different characters over the course of the game. Each region has their own unique stories, their own unique NPCs associated with them. Granted, I did only traverse through, I think, 2-3 zones total over on stream. The reason for that is due to the paywall that I noted earlier. This world is segregated, just like Final Fantasy XIV, just like Blade and Soul, or just like Guild Wars 2. To access different zones, you're required to move through small loading screens, and while they're instanced from one another, you'll encounter tons of players out in the world playing the game. Now, I mentioned that I only traversed 3 different zones total due to the paywall. WIZARD101, they advertised themselves as a free-to-play MMO, specifically a free Wizard MMORPG game. They state that you'll gain free access to most of the first world, Wizard City, but for those of us that wish to play beyond the first world, you'll be required to purchase one of several different packages. On the one hand, you can opt for a monthly membership that will unlock every zone. On the other, you can pay for zones separately. The latter option allows for you to retain access to those zones permanently, if I recall, whereas premium memberships do not. Paying separately ends up much more expensive in the long term, so if you plan on playing daily, you'd honestly be better off with the premium monthly membership. The main issue I have with this, however, is after purchasing access to this content, you'll have access as long as your membership remains active. So if I'm out in the middle of a zone when my membership runs out, too bad, you're done. Keep paying if you want to play more. Now, I have no issue with premium games. I had an active subscription with WoW for a decade. I've had an active subscription with Final Fantasy XIV since 2016. I'm also more than happy purchasing content. I purchased every expansion for ESO, for Guild Wars 2, but when you advertise yourself as a free game, require you purchase access to new content, and then remove your access to that content when you stop paying? No. Either advertise yourself as a premium game or allow us to purchase the entire game. This just, to me, feels a little bit misleading. And I know that this opinion, my opinion specifically, on this aspect of the game and its business model is going to upset some of you because I know you're not necessarily going to agree with that. But at the end of the day, that's just how I feel personally. In terms of content, there are a significant number of worlds that players can purchase. Wizard City, Mushu, Avalon, Arcanum, Mirage, Wisteria, just to name a few. When I googled, I happened across approximately 20, give or take a couple. There are a large number of dungeons for players to enter. You seem to be able to run with groups of up to 4 players total. There are gauntlets that you can participate in, which function similarly to dungeons. There's a functional PvP system over in the PvP arena by oh man, this guy's name. I mean, I couldn't. I couldn't. I tried. I genuinely, I gave it my all, but I just couldn't.
Greetings. My name is Diego Santiago Corriquez Ramirez III, champion duelist.
Okay, wait. Can you repeat that one more time? My name is Diego Santiago Rodriguez Rodriguez Rodriguez. What?
My name is
Diego Santiago Corriquez Ramirez. I give up. There's also a form of player housing present, dorm rooms, modest private, and luxury private homes. I've been trying to get a plot of land over in Final Fantasy XIV for years. I feel like I'm in this perpetual state of homelessness in every MMO I play. Now, at the end of the day, WIZARD101 was a very fun MMO. The game definitely looks dated, probably too dated for me to want to invest time into long term. The combat was incredibly unique and left me feeling a sense of nostalgia. I love JRPGs, I loved them back when they were turn-based, and I wish more JRPGs developed these days would still utilize their turn-based combat system, as it required forethought, it required tactics, much more than it required reflexes. Not that I'm saying I have bad reflexes or I'm not very reactive to content, okay, maybe that's what I'm saying, maybe that's one of the reasons that I enjoy turn-based combat a little bit more and why I suck so much at Black Desert Online. However, I'm also not fond of the business model that's utilized. I feel like it's cheap and a little misleading when you go into the game thinking that it's going to be completely free and you find out that it isn't. Is this the greatest MMO? To some people, yeah, sure. To me though, no. The combat was fun, but waiting on members of your party to make their move took far too long and often left me sitting there bored. However, playing solo was a lot more fun. It just kind of defeats the purpose of playing an MMO if you have to play solo to have the engagements move at a moderate pace. Graphically, well, you know what, it had a unique charm to it, but it felt like every Magic game ever developed in like the 90s or the early 2000s. The narrative was actually pretty solid. It was fun, it was quirky, and felt like something out of a children's novel. The world is immensely large. There are so many different regions to explore, all with their own unique aesthetic and stories, but it's all locked behind a paywall. Realistically, you have access to the same features that most MMOs provide us, so I'd say we fall in about average here. Now, I had fun in WIZARD101. I did. I was laughing hysterically throughout the story because of how silly it ultimately ended up getting at times. The voice acting was also surprisingly good. The world was cute, the combat was unique. I do wish I had access to more cards though. Seeing the kinds of things that other players were summoning mid-battle was incredible, and you know what, admittedly I was a little bit jealous because I couldn't access any of that. I had access to like little fairies and I don't even remember what else I had access to. I just remember the fairies because I had so many of them, and it's like I encountered so many fairies over the course of the game. Now, is this an MMO that I would genuinely play long term though? No. It felt too slow to me, and I am definitely not a part of its target demographic. Now, if you're interested in my thoughts on other MMOs, you can go ahead and click this video over here, and I have a video right here of all the upcoming MMOs slated to release this year in 2022.